Hey guys, what's going on? I have another knife review for you guys today, and my last one of 2011. So after that, we'll usher in the new year, and trust me, I have plenty more knives and gear to review for you guys. So, last knife review, and possibly last video of 2011. So, this is another one of Kershaw's very nice, affordable, yet rugged offerings. This is the Kershaw 1 ton. This is the bigger brother of the half ton, and they have the 3/4 ton. Now honestly, none of those really tickled my fancy, so I've never really done a lot of research on those, and I've never owned one. But this one, my buddy Red Gladius picked one up and spoke pretty highly of it, so thought I'd check one out myself. So I got this for Christmas, and I really do like this knife. This is a very cool knife, and like I said, it is affordable, and it's just the quality's right, you know. It's Kershaw. So now I'm not gonna lie, there are some cons with this knife, and I'll address those as the review progresses. But I definitely think that the pros outweigh the cons, so that's always a plus, right? But like I said, you got to keep in mind the price point here. This is about $23, $25 knife, around that ballpark. Now you can probably find a little cheaper, probably more expensive in other places, but just look around and I'm sure you'll find one within your price range. Alright, so I'm going to start out with the handle as I usually do. On this side, it is much like the Skyline. You just have a solid slab of G10. The texturing is on par with the Spyderco Tenacious. So, you know, it kind of has that plasticky feel. It's not that tractionable, but it works, you know. You get some traction on there. It's not horrible. It's nothing like the Spyderco Military, but this is a $130 knife. So, I mean, you know, here again, you got to keep in mind about the price range here. You have a small lanyard hole here, as Kershaw likes to do, make the lanyard holes really small. But you can fit a piece of 550 cord through there. Gutted, of course. 3 Torx bit construction. They're not countersunk, doesn't really matter, it's just an aesthetic thing. Pivot, of course, and then you have the blade stop pin. So, thickness is just right. It's about 1/8, if I'm not mistaken. Flow-through design, which I do prefer. I do like flow-through knives. Backspacers, to me, just yeah, they have function, but to me they just look kind of cheesy in some knives. Not all, but some. So I like it that they give you these nice standoffs or pillars, whatever you want to call them. So you do have some jimping up top here, which is nice. It's actually tractionable. I like it. Not that much of it, but at least they give you some, right? And then on this side, you have a slab of stainless steel, which is the lock. This is a frame locking knife, which also sets it apart from the 1 ton and 3/4 ton, those being liner locking knives and having, I believe it was just like an FRN handle design, you know, with like rubber inserts and, you know, like I said, they just weren't tickling my fancy. But when I found out this was a frame lock with G10, yeah, just kind of like, hey. So, this side you have a nice pocket clip. I like it when Kershaw does the normal pocket clips. You can see this design on a few other knives, but I like it. It's very strong. You know, it's not flimsy. You're not going to worry about it breaking. It's very strong, and you can adjust it from tip up to tip down. It came tip down, and honestly, I don't mind tip down on this knife, so I just kept it that way. But you can reverse it, so that's very nice. Another thing about this knife is that it's so thin. This makes an excellent back pocket knife. So I like the fact that it's so thin. You know, you carry it, you don't even really notice. Now, being the stainless steel, it is going to add to a little bit of the weight. It feels to be about 3.4 ounces, somewhere around that range. I'll annotate it right here because I honestly don't remember off the top of my head. So, like I said, normal pocket clip, I like that. And the whole thing is Kershaw's stone washing, which I don't, or I'm sorry, bead blasting, not stone washing. I don't like bead blasted finish, so I might polish that up myself. I just don't prefer it. And up top here, the scale and the frame come together in a little point, which I think that's pretty cool. I like the way that looks, and it also adds some function. You know, you can grab this knife and use that as an impact device if needed. Also, being stainless steel, that could shatter glass if applied properly. So you have that capability as well. That is something I will say that the military probably couldn't do. But I mean, you know, what do you plan on doing with your knife? You're going to need to shatter glass. Now, yes, there are stories of people having to break into cars to save people's lives. So that might come in handy. You also have of course, when you have the standoffs, you have to have the dual torque spits. So, not a problem. Just more parts to take out when you're cleaning your knife, but it doesn't really matter. Now, one of the cons I will say about this knife, yeah, you do have those nice dual thumb studs that are big, but oh, how easy you can see that. Look how much further they stick out from the frame of the knife. So when well, I found anyway, when I'm putting this into my pocket keeps getting hung up on the thumb stud and not going all the way into my pocket. So I find that to kind of be a problem. It's just something you have to train yourself to realize and to fix. But still, I don't like that. That's kind of a peeve of mine. You know, when you have to overthink just doing something as simple as putting your knife in your pocket. So, but also, as you see, one of the minor modifications I've done to this knife, I sanded down with my Dremel and one of the stone bits the thumb stud, because now, yes, in this price point you're going to have a lot of quality control variations. You're going to have a lot of variables, and a lot of knives are going to differ in quality. So yours might not be this way. The detent on mine is insanely strong. So much so that it was really hurting my thumb to deploy this blade. That and these thumb stud ridges being very sharp. So they're very sharp, so I sanded them down, and it is a lot better now. You still have that insane detent, but I'd rather it be there than have very little detent. So there's just something to be said about that. Just a minor modification I did to mine. Not a real big deal, though. So, yeah. Let's take a look at that blade, which I think is very nice looking. You have that big fat blade. Look at that. So you have that big stout blade, perfect for a work knife. Got a ton of belly on that blade. Came pretty sharp. It came to a very toothy edge, which is to be expected. I sharpened up myself on the Sharp Maker. It's pretty darn sharp now. The blade steel on this guy is HCR 13 MOV. It's what Kershaw is using on all of their overseas made knives. And a lot of other companies, Spyderco, Benchmade's used it a time or two, if I'm not mistaken. You know, it's just an all-around good budget steel. You know, it has adequate edge retention. You can get it razor sharp. So that is definitely a huge plus. But you just got a big fat blade. You don't have to worry about that tip. It's not that delicate. It is a pretty sharp tip, but you're not going to worry about it snapping. Don't detect any hollow. Yeah, there is a slight hollow grind in that blade. But you have a nice unsharpened swedge up top. Just nice looking blade in my opinion. Nice grind lines, or just nice grinds. And I like it, personally. So, yeah, I have Kershaw stamped right there. And I hope I'm saying that right. I've had a lot of people criticize me on the way I say Kershaw. I don't really care, though. 1447 right there, which is the model number. And China stamped down here. So, yeah, like I said, this is obviously an overseas-made knife, which is going to contribute to the low price. You know, and then there's another shot of how thin it is. Compare it to the military, which is also a very thin knife, but this is much thinner if that's what you're into. Very ergonomic, believe it or not, for how thin this knife is. You can really get a nice grip. I mean, it doesn't really matter how big or how small your hand is. I will say though, if your hands are on the larger side, this will fit you much better. Let me get my little ruler here. Talk about the blade length. The blade length is going to be exactly 3 1/4 inches long. But let's look at the thickness here. You're looking at 1 1/4 inches wide. That's a stout blade. Here we go. This is my EDC of the day, so I'm just using it as a comparison. Look at that. So, yeah. The blade is also bead blasted. Here again, I would like to polish that. But very nice blade. I really do like it. And like I said, ACR 13 MOV can get very sharp. I mean, that's just ridiculous. So very, very sharp, very capable steel. I really like it for this price. The lockup was rock solid. Now I say was because my handiwork kind of made it develop a little bit of play, but it came absolutely just unbelievably solid. So very impressed with that. Another minor modification I did, you can look at the lock bar there, is polished. The edges right here on the inside was very sharp. And here again, so much so that it was hurting my thumb to use. So I sanded it down and polished it, and I also cut the G10 just a little bit, cut it back, just so I can get a little bit more of my thumb on that lock bar. So listen to that lockup though. Very, very solid. But like I said, it is still very solid. But when I polished it, I polished some of the underside of the face, which connects with the tang of the blade. And it just kind of made it more slick and made the lock be able to move over a little bit easier. But like I said, it was very, very solid out of the box. Of course, with most frame locks, you can just push it right over, you know. No over travel or anything, but you can't really push it over that far because of the pocket clip. So, blade centering, I know a lot of people care about it. Blade centering is awful on this knife. Now, yes, I always say this because so many people critique it as a, right out of the box, as some horrible flaw. I adjusted the pivot. You can tighten it all you want, loosen it, swap the washers around. By the way, they are Teflon washers, not phosphor bronze. They're just Teflon. But it's one of the ones that has one small one and one big one. Swapped them around because that sometimes helps. You still have a lot of centering issues. It doesn't rub on the scale. I don't have any problem with it whatsoever. Blade centering is not a factor in my reviewing and my thoughts on a knife. I really don't care. But it is just one of those things, if you guys care, mine is not centered. So, the deployment is a little slow, to be honest. I think it just has to do with the placement of that thumb stud. I just think the what do you want to call it? The focal point, the geometry is just a little off, but you can flip it out rather fast with a little bit of practice. So, not a big deal. Like I said, it is very ergonomic. The jimping does help a little bit up top. Very, very big finger choil. And you have a little swell right there. No real hot spots, to be honest. Now, if you were to, because it looks like you can almost fit 2 of your fingers in that choil. If you were to try, you know, really choke up on this knife, you do get a hot spot right there. It will dig into your middle finger bone. Here again, not an issue though, if you just kind of do that. So, but it is a very ergonomic knife and somewhat contributed to the fact that it's so thin. So that just makes it an excellent back pocket secondary carry knife, or even a primary carry if that's what you're into. But it does ride, it is kind of chunky in your pocket. Here again, just comparing it to the military, you know, it is kind of chunky. But I like it that they did make it very thin. It's as thin as an iPhone. So if you're carrying those, then this shouldn't be a problem. Now, another thing that I think is an upgrade over the originals, as I said, it is a frame lock, and this is marketed as a hard-use, affordable work knife. So I'm sure most of you guys are familiar with the attributes of a frame lock and the advantages. The tighter you grip this knife, the more you're pushing the lock bar into the tang of the blade, which is going to cause a solid lockup. So much like a friction folder, the tighter you hold this, the tighter the lockup is going to be, and that knife is not going to close on you. If this was a liner lock, however, it could actually aid in the fact that it would close on you. So that's not really something I worry about a lot. That's not a factor. That's not something that runs through my head when I'm buying a knife. I generally don't prefer frame locking knives, to be honest, but I think with this design and with the applications Kershaw had in mind for this knife, that was a smart decision in just my personal opinion. One last thing and I'll wrap it up. The detent, as I stated in the beginning of this review, is insanely strong. You can watch it just suck in. No, it's not like a Spyderco Endura where it'll start sucking in from here. But you can just hear the detent. Insanely strong. Now, it doesn't seem to fly out of the handle. I'm sure if I really work it, it might, just because the blade is so thick, but I can't do it right now. So that's not going to be a problem. This knife should not open in your pocket ever. So, yeah, this is a really great knife, especially under $25. I mean, you can't beat that. You get a nice blade steel, you get a nice thin knife, solid construction. It's pretty smooth, and I just like the way it looks. I like that big fatty blade, you know, and I'm definitely going to do some tests on this knife, so stay tuned for future videos. I am going to be testing this knife, chopping wood with it, different things that you do around the shop, and I might even pick up another one just to pimp out. But yeah, guys, very good quality knife for the money. I do recommend this knife. So don't let the minor cons I brought up deter you from purchasing this knife, because the things that I changed about mine were probably only issues that my knife had. Yours, if you buy one, yours might not have the same problems mine did. But I still don't consider them huge problems. I still love this knife. And like I said, I do highly recommend it. Alright guys, hope you enjoyed this review. Of course, if you have any questions, just leave them down there in the comments box, guys. Alright, have a great day. Stay safe, stay sharp, and God bless. Sherman614, peace.